Would the loot from one Corrupted Gauntlet be enough to clear the Tombs of Amascut? My friends and I were determined to figure that out. We decided to put our endgame PVM skills to the test and see if we could defeat ToA using the budget of a single CG chest. What gear would we end up with to make this attempt in? Let's find out. Our journey began in the Red Prison, putting our collective cases into the chat to show that there would be no shenanigans with the challenge today. One single Corrupted Gauntlet kill each, and we would use the loot to buy whatever raid gear we could afford. Into the prison we went. What could we expect from a single CG chest? Well, according to the wiki, about 150k in loot. Of course, there are special crystal seeds as well, but those are much rarer. ToA may be the most accessible raid, but we knew a 150k budget would be tough. I hadn't done a gauntlet in some time, but much like riding a bike, it was easy enough to hop back into. Due to my god gamer capabilities, it was never in doubt that I'd get the KC.
Oh my god, I just double clicked my prayer. Oh, I got chanced again. No, I didn't get chanced.
Did you die?
Oh, there's a good chance I don't get this skin.
Nope. No chances whatsoever.
Oh my god! I might be dead again. Oh, the zero. Let's go.
You know what? Actually, let's just skip to the end of this kill.
And we did it, boys.
Somehow, I was the slowest one to finish their kill. Together, we approached the chest and opened it all at the same time.
3, 2, 1, open! Oh no.
Oh, I got terrific loot.
Oh no.
I was, well, not exactly pleased with my loot. As soon as I saw the runes in the chest, I knew things were about to get difficult. Including the value of the crystals, I had about 135k to work with. My dream of splurging for a Keris was crushed. My hope for mystic robes erased. Brews and restores, oh, those were right out. Luckily, Cooler K and Lombardi Bro fared a bit better than I did, each ending up with a little over 200k in budget. But I knew I was in trouble. So, into my bank I went, looking for a gear setup that might just give me a chance. There were two obvious choices to bring into ToA, the Trident and the Dragon Dagger. Both were cheap options that provided significant utility for the raid. I was hoping that I might be able to afford a rune crossbow for range, but the low budget ruled that out. Instead, a magic shortbow would have to do. With mithril arrows. Yeah, the budget was that tight. For armor, Black D'hide was the obvious choice. It gives some of the best stats in the game when considering its ridiculously cheap price point. Rune gloves were chosen for a similar reason, and I also decided to save a few K by using a power Ami instead of a glory. Here was the final setup and inventory that I would be bringing into the raid. As many sharks as I could afford, and some truly pitiful potion representation. Lombardi Bro and Cooler K brought similar setups as well, since ultimately, they only had about 80k more in budget than I had. The big difference for them was that they could afford salad robes for mage armor and more trident charges. This would be important for the Baba puzzle room. Both also had rune crossbows, and Lombardi Bro was able to splurge on a leaf-bladed sword. The invocations that we chose to turn on was another important decision to make. We needed to hit 150 to enter the standard difficulty of ToA. To do that, we focused on adding as many points to the Warden fight as possible. We avoided invocations on Baba given the difficulty that the boss could represent since we wouldn't have a DWH or BGS. Finally, we enter the tomb. Immediately, you were confronted with another decision: what order to do the paths. Our decision was to start off with Zebak. The order that we did the bosses in didn't matter too much since there were no path invocations on, but it did matter which bosses we did before the helpful spirit could provide us with supplies. In the wise words of Lombardi Bro,
Baba first sounds terrible.
We knew that we didn't want to do Baba without salts, and they were also required to butterfly on Akkha. So, into Zebak we went.
Oh, this puzzle's gonna be really hard in our shit gear.
I then proceeded to embarrass myself and then my ancestors by not getting 100 on my first pass. And it resulted in the mythical 84. Seriously, I have no idea how that's calculated. And now, it was finally time for the coolest looking boss in all of RuneScape. Our strategy here was straightforward. I mentioned before that Lombardi Bro and Cooler K brought crossbows. And I'm sure you figured out by now that that means they also brought enchanted ruby bolts. The plan was simple: get absolutely carried by the ruby bolt spec. And that strategy worked wonders.
Wait, the MSB is popping off.
I must admit, even at 150 invocation, I was shocked how well the MSB with mithril arrows was performing.
Oh, I don't have T-bow!
That said, it doesn't mean that I didn't forget at a time that the bow I was using was not my prized twisted bow, and I almost died as a result.
I'm like, do I use... It's funny that, like, I'm thinking about a single prayer to... It's like, can I... What is with this?
Also, I'm apparently a magnet for the poison that the waveform spawns, and I am legally required to stand in it. Overall, Zebak was not bad at all. I think I speak for everyone who has ever done a level 4 Zebak. Once you go back down to level 1, it is a complete chill mode boss. Shockingly, I was not the MVP of this room though. Next up was the poop boy himself, Kephri. Like 2 of the other 3 puzzle rooms, the Kephri puzzle is nice and relaxing. Or, at least it is because of the totally not overpowered base RuneLite plugin that essentially solves all of them for you.
Alright, Struggle Town, Population Imperator.
Somehow, despite these essentially cheat client powers, I still managed to take a laughably long time on the pillar puzzle.
Cool, okay, just finished all the other...
But we made it through. It's now time for me to reveal another secret weapon that was brought into the raid. You might have noticed that Lombardi Bro and Cooler K had a nifty little spec weapon, the Bone Dagger. Ever see one of these in action before? It's surprisingly useful, especially when you consider that it only costs 3k. The spec reduces enemy defense by whatever you hit, and as long as you weren't the last player to attack the NPC, it's guaranteed to hit. On the ToA bosses, they only have 20 reducible stats in defense, the Warden has 30, so that's pretty decent. It is at this moment that I would also like to say, wow, Kephri feels like a different boss when you do it without a Keris or Fang. It turns out, these bosses were not intended to be done in no melee gear and a dragon dagger.
I don't know if you guys are hitting, but I appear to be the only person on the team hitting.
And Lombardi Bro was not wrong. We knew that the kill was going to be slow, but I was not prepared for just how infrequently I was going to hit. We had to be really careful to lay out the poop in a manner that would give us the most space to work with. When we got him to the first phase, I had to use my MSB to make sure to keep as many scarabs away from him as possible. It actually worked out great, as it meant that we only had to deal a fraction of the damage to get him to his next phase. Having to deal only half the total HP of the boss to get to the next phase was great, and it dramatically sped up this part of the kill. Cooler K also pointed out something that I was hoping nobody would notice.
You're on Flash, Imperator.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And then it was time for the scarabs again. And it was here that disaster nearly struck. Perhaps the most sneakily dangerous part of ToA, the Mage Scarab. Normally, you have enough players in the room with a Fang, Blowpipe, or Keris that you kill it with no problem before it unleashes its massive attack. We did not have that. And as a result, we're not able to get it to move before it unleashed its massive attack on us.
Be at full.
Luckily, since it was only a 150 invocation raid, we were able to tank the hit and continue the kill. Really, the only difference, if you want to call it that, was that we had to kill the melee scarab despite trapping it, something that we like to skip in our normal raids. Otherwise, not much else happened. It was much like a normal kill, just very, very slow.
Yes! Let's go.
I got the dung, to no one's surprise. I don't know if that would have been possible without the leaf-related sword.
It was now time for the next decision of the raid. What supplies to select? My supplies were dangerously low, which meant that I couldn't take power, the option that is usually selected first in a normal raid. Luckily, my chaos offered restores and salt. I knew that there was a chance that I wouldn't get a second salt later, but it was a risk that I had to take. Now it was time for the room that we had been putting off. The bane of everyone's sanity that regularly does high-level ToA. The dreaded Baba room. I'm going to take a moment now to explain why this room fucking sucks. But Imperator, by the way, it's basically the same as Nyla room. Sure, if you only took the bad parts of Nyla room and combined it with the dumb decision to make it scale with raid level. Whereas every other puzzle in ToA takes around 1 minute to complete, this one usually takes a whopping 3 minutes. I mean, yeah, the mechanics are creative, but why do the thralls drain prayer? Why don't the exploding baboons kill other baboons? Who put the statue in the center of the room? Okay, deep breaths. Our puzzle room surprisingly went smoothly enough. We lucked out big time that Lombardi Bro and Cooler K were able to afford enough trident charges because I didn't have any to spare, and I don't think I did a single mage attack in the entire puzzle room. It may have taken us 5 minutes, but we got through the puzzle without any major fuck-ups. On to Baba himself. The boys ran in and used their specs. Their 3k bone daggers doing the exact same amount of defense reduction as the 10 mil BGS would have. And then a miracle happened. Our weapons consistently hit. No, seriously, I was shocked. I couldn't believe how well we were hitting. Maybe that's just the difference of being salted versus unsalted. Or maybe it's because I'm used to high-level expert ToAs where the scaling is a lot worse. But I was not anticipating that we would hit Baba more consistently than Kephri. The biggest question was actually not the melee damage, but whether we would have the range damage to deal with the boulders during his phasing.
Alright, let's see how much damage we do here. I'm pretty sure it'll be one shot. I think I'll one-shot it. Like, alright, it's 2-shot.
Luckily, we did, so it was just a matter of doing it 2 more times. Honestly, I think Baba might have been our cleanest room, even cleaner than Zebak.
Kill him! Nice! Oh, man.
We never really got chanced, and we just slowly but surely got him down until we killed him. That meant there was just one path left, Akkha. We were actually on a bit of a time limit here. In order to butterfly kite, you have to have a lot of stamina. Smelling salts consistently recharge your run energy, and without it, you can actually run out while doing the butterfly. Given that we knew we were in a rush, we made sure that we messed up and did a 2-down on the puzzle? Wait, what? Well, it was unfortunate, but what can you do?
That's fine. It would have been a 2-down with bronze pickaxes, so this is a 2-down with the sand.
And finally, we got to Akkha. I will say, this boss would probably be a nightmare if you had this gear and were unable to do the butterfly. I mean, our melee and range gear was severely lacking. Thankfully, everyone in our group was more than capable, and it made the entire encounter way easier. Something else that I was curious to see and pleasantly surprised by was how consistently I managed to hit Akkha, given that I was essentially attacking him with just the trident and no equipment. It made sense though. Generally in OSRS, you're only using magic in places where you have a very high chance of hitting, and this was no exception. I was also curious how close it would come when we had to kill the shadows before they unleashed their attacks, but unlike the Mage Scarab, we had no problems there. During Akkha, I only almost killed myself once. Otherwise, the kill went as it typically does. Everyone in the group knew how to butterfly, and that allowed us to maximize the time we spent dealing damage with magic. And then it was P2, one of my least favorite parts of ToA, the come phase. I hate P2 Akkha even during my normal raids when I have a Fang, so doing it with just the Dragon Dagger and no melee gear sort of felt like someone sticking needles into my eyes, lighting myself on fire, throwing myself into the ocean to be eaten by sharks, and then having the captain of the boat that brought me out there piss on my grave. So besides that, it wasn't too bad. We managed to persevere despite our terrible weapons and finish the job. Wouldn't you know it, it was time for another decision at the Helpful Spirit. As much as I wanted to get another smelling salt, I didn't want to risk the low amount of restores that Chaos offered. Instead, I grabbed my 2 ambrosias from life and headed in. I wouldn't have enough salt to keep the boost refreshing for the duration of the Warden fight. However, you keep the stat boost from the salt even after the effect is gone, as long as you don't use brews and only use ambrosias to heal. It was finally time for the Warden fight. P1 Warden was simple enough as it always is. It just took a little bit longer. We were hanging on, but just barely. Lombardi Bro was actually almost out of bolts, so he and Cooler K needed to do a trade mid-fight right before P2 started.
Nice! Let's go!
This has been way faster on this damage department than I expected, I'll be honest.
P2 represented the first challenge for the Warden fight. It's one of the harder parts of ToA, up there with P2 Akkha and P3 Enrage. We knew that it was going to be at least a 3-down, probably a 4-down, and maybe even a 5-down despite having our Dragon Daggers. So, there was no rush. Just focus up and avoid taking unnecessary damage. The Dragon Dagger would finally get its time to shine. The Warden teased us during his 3rd down, and we basically red-barred him, meaning that it was going to take us 4 full downs to get to P3. We knocked the Warden down one final time and prepared ourselves for P3. I'll be honest, at this point, my knees were a little bit weak, my arms were heavy. There wasn't any vomit on my sweater already though, but I was beginning to feel the pressure. We did not want to fuck up so close to the finish line. The final challenge, P3 Warden. For those of you that have never played with Insanity on, this is where the fun begins. I brought 100 rune arrows specifically for this part of the fight, and I have to say, I actually enjoyed doing this with the MSV.
Wait, 3-tick is so easy here. Just one attack and move.
The timing of the move between tiles was pretty straightforward, so I never had to skip attacks. This fight gets more complicated with the path bosses attacking in the middle, but at this point we were all on autopilot and focusing up. Was this the power of Ultra Instinct? We managed to avoid as much unnecessary damage as possible and finally made it to the last hurdle of the tomb, the Enrage phase. At this point, I'm confident all 3 of our chairs were drenched in sweat. We had made it this far, and there was no way any of us wanted to be the one to mess up and cause us to lose the run. Our ambrosias were full, and our fingers were ready to click on the white potion. We danced the P3 Enrage dance, and finally, after about 45 minutes, we had finally dealt the killing blow and secured our KC. The challenge was complete.
Let's go. Let's go.
We had done a 150 invocation ToA with the budget of a single Corrupted Gauntlet kill. And to reward us for our achievement, RNG just laughed and gave us nothing. The satisfaction of a job well done would have to suffice. We did it.